In August 1947, after nearly 2 centuries of ruling the Indian subcontinent, the British drew lines on a map and created two nations from one subcontinent. India and Pakistan were born in blood, 1 million dead, 10 million displaced. But partition never really ended. It became a way of life, a permanent wound that shapes everything from trade routes to love stories, river management to restaurant menus. Today, 3 generations later, trucks traveling from Delhi to Lahore detour through Dubai. Families cannot inherit across borders. Artists obsess over division. Even food and music wear national labels that never existed before 1947. This summary tells the story of how the shadows of British colonialism lengthened rather than disappeared during Indian independence, how Gandhi's methods accidentally deepened the very divisions he sought to heal, and how 3 nations still struggle with ghosts that refuse to rest. Imagine yourself walking through a narrow lane in Pune, India in 1897. The morning air carries the sound of young men grunting and sweating in a nearby gymnasium. These wrestlers train with wooden clubs and stone weights, their bodies glistening with mustard oil. Each push-up, each wrestling move, each swing of the heavy clubs carries political meaning. These young men believe they are rebuilding Hindu strength, preparing to reclaim what colonialism has stolen. By the 1890s, a new understanding of British rule was taking hold across India. Earlier generations had focused on economic exploitation, the drain of wealth theory that revealed how Britain extracted resources from Indian soil. But now, intellectuals and activists saw something deeper at work. They believed British colonialism had succeeded because Hindus had grown weak and soft. The solution seemed clear: recover the warrior traditions of ancient India. Bal Gangadhar Tilak embodied this new militancy. In 1893, he transformed the Ganesh festival in Maharashtra from a private religious observance into a massive public demonstration. Thousands gathered in the streets, listening to songs that compared British officials to the demons killed by Hindu gods. When British authorities arrested Tilak in 1897 for sedition, riots erupted across Bombay. Young men who had trained in those gymnasiums now fought police in the streets. Tilak spent 6 years in a British prison in Mandalay, where he wrote his famous commentary on the Bhagavad Gita in 1915. His interpretation was revolutionary. Where traditional readings emphasized detachment and spiritual contemplation, Tilak saw a call to action. Krishna's advice to the warrior Arjun became a blueprint for resistance. Violence in service of righteousness became duty. This muscular nationalism spread through networks of gymnasiums, schools, and secret societies. In the province of Bengal, revolutionary groups stockpiled weapons and compiled bomb-making manuals. Young men performed elaborate initiation ceremonies before images of the goddess Kali, patron of destruction. Between 1907 and 1917, these groups carried out over 200 political assassinations and bombings. Yet even as this violent resistance grew, another vision emerged. When Mohandas Gandhi returned from South Africa in 1915, he offered a different path. Nonviolence could be a strength. Suffering could be power. Mass mobilization could achieve what bombs could not. But the tensions between these visions, militant and peaceful, exclusive and inclusive, would shape everything in the century that followed. World War II changed everything. When in 1939, Britain declared India at war against Germany without consulting any Indian leaders, Gandhi's Congress Party resigned from provincial governments in protest. Mass arrests ensued, and by 1942, Gandhi and the entire Congress leadership were imprisoned until 1944. Meanwhile, India's second biggest party, the Muslim League, worked with the British and grew stronger. By 1945, World War II had left Britain exhausted and bankrupt. Global colonial empires were crumbling everywhere. The Royal Indian Navy mutiny of February 1946 showed that British colonial control was coming to a rapid end. Lord Mountbatten arrived as the last British ruler of India in March 1947 with a mandate to transfer power quickly. On August 15, 1947, India gained independence. Pakistan was born a day earlier. Freedom came, but it came divided. Gandhi never wanted partition. He called it the vivisection of Mother India, and in January 1948 he would die at the hands of a Hindu nationalist who blamed him for allowing it. But here lies the tragic irony at the heart of Indian independence. The very methods Gandhi used to mobilize millions against British rule helped create the divisions that tore the subcontinent apart. Consider what happened during the Khilafat movement of 1919 to 1922. Gandhi saw an opportunity to unite Hindus and Muslims against the British by supporting Muslim protests over the dismantling of the Ottoman Caliphate. He brought religious leaders onto political platforms. He encouraged Muslims to see their faith as a basis for political action. He asked Hindus to support their Muslim brothers as a sacred duty. The movement collapsed by 1922, but its effects lingered. Communities that had mobilized along religious lines found it hard to think any other way. The Salt March of 1930 showed Gandhi's genius for symbolic politics. You can imagine the scene. A frail man in homespun cotton walking 240 miles to the sea, followed by thousands, to make illegal salt, in defiance of British laws that forced Indians to buy heavily taxed salt from British merchants. The British looked ridiculous, arresting people for picking up seawater. But look closer at who walked with Gandhi. Upper caste Hindus dominated the inner circle. Muslims watched from the sidelines, suspicious. The Congress Party claimed to represent all Indians, but its symbols, its language, its rituals felt Hindu to many minorities. By the 1940s, these fissures had become chasms. Muhammad Ali Jinnah, once a secular lawyer who championed Hindu-Muslim unity, now demanded the creation of Pakistan, a separate Muslim-majority nation. He'd watched Gandhi transform Congress into a mass movement by appealing to religious sentiment. Jinnah learned the lesson well. If Gandhi could mobilize Hindus through fasts and prayers, then Muslims needed their own homeland to protect their interests. The provincial elections of 1946 proved the point. The Muslim League, which had been an elite club just a decade earlier, won almost every Muslim seat. Congress won the Hindu seats. India had already split along religious lines before any borders were drawn. Yet when partition came in August 1947, it unleashed horrors that killed over 1 million people. Trains arrived at stations carrying only corpses. Whole villages disappeared overnight. 3 nations emerged from the ashes of partition, each scarred in different ways. India chose democracy but struggled with its demons. Pakistan searched for identity between mosque and military. Bangladesh would wait until 1971 to be born through another bloodbath. In India in 1950, Jawaharlal Nehru stood before the Constituent Assembly presenting a constitution that promised equality for all citizens regardless of religion. This was audacious. Here was a country where 1 million had just died in religious violence, declaring itself secular. Nehru insisted that India would not become a Hindu Pakistan. The state would keep its distance from temples and mosques alike. But democracy in India meant something particular. The Congress Party machinery that had fought for independence now became the scaffolding of the new state. Local party bosses distributed licenses, jobs, and favors. You needed connections to get a gas cylinder, a phone line, or your child into school. This wasn't corruption exactly. It was how democracy worked at the ground level. The poor learned to trade their votes for small advantages. The rich learned to buy influence. Meanwhile, the Hindu nationalists who had killed Gandhi regrouped. The National Volunteer Organization, banned after the assassination, returned in 1949 with a new strategy. They would play the long game. They opened schools, ran disaster relief, and created unions. They taught children morning exercises and evening prayers. They whispered that Nehru's secularism betrayed the Hindu majority. They waited. Across the new border, Pakistan faced a different problem. Jinnah died in September 1948, just 13 months after independence. His deputy, Liaquat Ali Khan, was assassinated in 1951. Pakistan had been created as a homeland for Muslims, but what did that mean? Should Islamic law govern daily life? Should clerics run the courts? The politicians debated while the military grew impatient. In October 1958, General Ayub Khan ended the debates. Martial law arrived with promises of efficiency and order. Pakistan would have its first military ruler, but not its last. A pattern emerged. Civilians would mismanage, generals would intervene, promise elections, then find reasons to delay. The military positioned itself as the guardian of Pakistan, above the messy business of politics. The irony was sharp. Pakistan, created through ballot boxes and political mobilization, kept failing at democracy. India, born from the same violence, managed to hold elections even when democracy meant inefficiency and chaos. East Pakistan watched from 1,200 miles away, separated from the western wing by Indian territory. The Bengalis were the majority of Pakistan's population, but the Punjabi-dominated military treated them like a colony. When they voted wrong in 1970, choosing Sheikh Mujibur Rahman and his autonomy platform, the military responded with genocide. The killing began in March 1971. Pakistani soldiers targeted Bengali intellectuals, students, and Hindus. By December, up to 3 million were dead and 10 million had fled to India. Bangladesh emerged from this horror, traumatized and impoverished. 3 nations, 3 experiments, all struggling with the ghosts of 1947. Every new nation needs its myths. After 1947, artists, writers, and filmmakers across the Indian subcontinent faced an impossible task: create culture that could heal vast wounds while building new identities. The results revealed just how deep those wounds were. Bollywood became India's dream factory, but look closely at the films of the 1950s and you see partition everywhere. Mother India from 1957 tells the story of a village woman who kills her own son to preserve honor. The film became India's national epic, nominated for an Oscar, shown to foreign dignitaries as the essence of Indian values. But underneath the melodrama was a message. The nation demands sacrifice, even of your children. The pure village mother stood against the corrupt modern city. Traditional values would save India from itself. Pakistan's film industry, centered in Lahore, told different stories. The studios that had once served all of Punjab now had to imagine a new audience. Islamic historical epics flourished. The biggest hits were often love stories where families divided by partition reunite. The trauma was too fresh to address directly, so it appeared in metaphor, like lovers separated by rivers that suddenly became borders. The progressive writers had their own problems. The All India Progressive Writers Association had united Muslim and Hindu intellectuals against colonialism. After partition, they split. Saadat Hasan Manto, who wrote the most searing partition stories, moved to Pakistan, but found his work banned for obscenity. His story Toba Tek Singh captured the madness. It follows a lunatic asylum inmate who refuses to accept partition, dying in no man's land between the two countries. Manto drank himself to death by 1955, destroyed by the world he was documenting. In 1959, Indian television began broadcasting from Delhi, 2 hours a week at first, then slowly expanding. The state controlled every minute. Educational programs taught villagers about family planning and modern farming. Sanskrit dramas alternated with Hindi film songs. The message was clear: India was both an ancient civilization and a modern nation. By contrast, Pakistan banned television until 1964, with religious authorities declaring it un-Islamic. When broadcasts finally began, they opened with Quranic recitation. The languages themselves became political. Hindi, written in Devanagari script, was declared India's national language, though English remained for official business. Pakistan chose Urdu, essentially the same language as Hindi but written in Arabic script, even though most Pakistanis spoke Punjabi, Bengali, or Sindhi, languages as different from Urdu as Spanish is from German. In East Pakistan, the imposition of Urdu sparked riots in 1952. Students died demanding recognition for Bengali. Language was never just language. Script was never just script. Every artistic choice carried the weight of identity. Even music divided along new lines. All India Radio banned film songs as too vulgar, promoting classical ragas instead. Radio Pakistan played devotional music, but worried when the lyrics sounded too Hindu. The shared musical traditions of centuries were slowly pulled apart, sorted into national boxes. Walk through any South Asian city today, and you still encounter many ghosts of partition. In Delhi's Lajpat Nagar market, the grandchildren of Punjabi refugees sell clothes in shops built on allocated plots from 1947. Their success stories hide traumatic memories passed down like heirlooms. In Karachi, Muhajir descendants of those who fled India still vote as a bloc 78 years later, identity frozen at the moment of crossing. The economic cost compounds daily. India and Pakistan barely trade, despite sharing a 1,900-mile border. Trucks carrying cement or textiles often travel from Delhi to Lahore via Dubai, a 6,000-mile detour for a 300-mile journey. The subcontinent's GDP loses an estimated $40 billion annually to this absurdity. Families divided by partition cannot inherit property across borders. Bank accounts frozen in 1947 remain frozen. The environment pays too. The Indus River, which should be managed as one ecosystem, splits between hostile nations. When Pakistan faces floods, India cannot release water from upstream dams without triggering invasion fears. When India needs water for drought-hit farmers, Pakistan sees water warfare. Literature also processes the wound. Salman Rushdie's Midnight's Children, Bapsi Sidhwa's Cracking India, Kamila Shamsi's Home Fire, each generation returns to partition, finding new metaphors for the same pain. The Man Booker Prize regularly goes to novels about 1947's aftermath. Western readers consume these exotic tragedies, unaware they're reading about living trauma, not historical fiction. Modern artists obsess over divided objects. Shilpa Gupta installs microphones along the India-Bangladesh border, capturing voices calling across barbed wire. Pritika Chowdhury creates anti-monuments to partition violence. Nalini Milani's video installations project shadows of fleeing refugees onto gallery walls. The art world celebrates this pain as powerful commentary. The artist cannot stop making it. Even food carries borders now. Dishes that evolved over centuries in Delhi or Lahore get labeled Indian or Pakistani. Restaurants in London serve authentic national cuisines that never existed before 1947. A Punjabi dish becomes either Indian or Pakistani depending on which side of Wagah border the chef was born. And the same extends to music. A raga performed in Chennai is called Indian classical. The same raga in Karachi is claimed as Pakistani heritage. The deepest shadows of partition are imprinted on imagination itself. 3 generations have now grown up unable to imagine the subcontinent whole. The mental maps have hardened. When Indian filmmakers need a terrorist, he speaks Urdu. When Pakistani dramas need a villain, she prays to Hindu gods. Bangladesh, exhausted by its double partition, tries to forget both neighbors exist. Each nation defines itself by what it is not, who it is not, where it cannot go. The noonday sun was supposed to burn away colonial darkness. Instead, the shadows shifted, grew longer, deeper. They stretch across time zones now, wherever the diaspora settles. Partition was never just an event. It became a way of being, a permanent incompleteness.